Sun City book lovers, welcome to Meet the Author. This show is made possible by Sun City Hilton Head Lifestyle Services, giving us a chance to learn more about the books we want to read and the people who create them.
Welcome to Meet the Author. This month's featured author is a Sun City resident and multi-book author, Thiem. He's bringing us the first book in his second series, Mudflats Murder Club. Hear me now. Everybody in Sun City needs to read this book. First of all, it's a great mystery. Second, a little bit of humor, but mostly relatable and recognizable characters that you don't want to miss. So let's meet the author, and you'll thank me for my recommendation. Brian, not one, but two book series that you're now involved with as the author. So introduce us to the second series, Mudflats Murder Club.
Well, the Mudflats Murder Club takes place on Spartina Island. It's a barrier island on the coast of South Carolina that many people would say resembles Hilton Head and some of our other islands down here. The main character on that is a man named Sean Tanner, and Sean Tanner, it wasn't part of Sean Tanner's life plans to investigate homicides. He's retired, and then he moved here to Spartina Island.
So I see, and I think I'm not being inaccurate to say, it's a vast understatement to say that there are several references in your books to our beautiful Sun City. So I wondered, did those references call out to you as you were writing, or did you make them work to be a reference in your books?
I think a little bit of both. You know, when I came up with the premise for this story, when I came down here, I was asked to join the sheriff's cold case team, and it consists of retired detectives and other law enforcement professionals from around the country that examine unsolved murders. And I was sitting in one of the meetings when I needed to come up with a premise for a new book, and I thought, wow, this could be it. Retired homicide detectives down here, and of course, you know, they say writers can either do a lot of research to find out what they want to write, or they can write what they know. And I had the setting right in front of me. Now, of course, I made things up because I didn't want to use the actual place. But yes, I think when readers from Sun City read it, they'll recognize many of the different places that I used in the book.
Well, I've read the book, and I told you I felt like it was a scavenger hunt. I'd get to the island, I'd go, that's Defusky. So I had a great time, and I think a lot of people like that relatability. Now, thankfully, without giving too much of the plot away, there are things that you've written in this book that don't necessarily happen in our everyday Sun City life. We hope not, and if, maybe keep that a secret for now. But I wondered, was that fun to sort of write the darker side, or was it maybe a little bit, maybe I shouldn't write that, a little intimidating?
Well, you know, that was one of the reasons that I created Spartina Island, and the 55-plus community I called Sea Island Plantation. Because over the series of books, there's going to be a lot of murders that take place. And so I didn't want to have a murder set on a certain street in Sun City and have the residents get upset or anything like that.
No, but there were so many references where it was interesting. Again, this is a good book to read. And in doing the research for this evening, I came across an interview you did with the State of Maine crime writers. And in that interview, you were asked, what makes a good book? If I can paraphrase your answer, you said you thought it was important that you have a main character that everyone cares about. Now, your protagonist is Sean Tanner. He has a background in homicide detective, but I wondered, how much of your experience as an Oakland Police Department official really reflects in Sean?
Well, you know, in my first series, it was the same thing. You know, in my first series, it took place in Oakland, and it was a homicide investigator who was the main character. And on this one here, Sean Tanner, he's retired from Oakland and then moves to Spartina Island. So, yeah, there are pieces of me, but I will say that Sean is taller than me, much better looking. He's, well, I want to say he's smoother with the women, but he kind of stumbles with Charlie in the book. So, but yeah, I mean, you can't help it. You know, he investigates homicides as I would.
Oh, his process is fascinating, and his method of not offending people in asserting what he really knew was the right thing to do was lovely to watch and to read in the book. But I agree, he's the kind of guy you really want to like go out to dinner with. You want to have him as part of your social circle, so you've made him a very good character, and I'm so happy to see that this just doesn't end with one book, that we'll be seeing lots of them. How many are planned for the series?
Well, just a little bit back on Sean, you know, my agent always says when I create a male character that all of your male readers want to be like and all the female readers want to be with. And so I don't know if I qualified with Sean, but anyway, to get back to your question there, when I signed the contract, my agent had negotiated a contract for a 4-book series. And the first book just did so incredibly well right after it was published that the publisher came back to my agent and asked for another 4 books. So I will be writing a 8-book series.
Oh, okay. Now, this is very successful, but just like other authors, you know, that are maybe in our community, aspiring writers, can you relate the story? It wasn't a real easy breezy to get Mudflats published, as successful as it is now, looking back. So tell us a little bit about that.
No, I mean, you know, I retired from the police department 20 years ago, and after I was retired a couple years, I got this wild idea that I could write a mystery novel. And I wrote something, you know, with the help of some other aspiring authors, and it wasn't any good. I went back to school and got an MFA, Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing. I did the 2-year program part-time in 3 years, and out of that came my first series. But then the publisher wasn't interested in a 4th book, and you know, and I would say a little bit despaired for a while. And then my agent does what she always does. She's a great cheerleader. She says, write something new. And I did write something new. And she tried to sell that to the publishers, and nobody wanted it. I did it again with another book, and nobody wanted it. I did it with a 3rd book, and nobody wanted it. And then finally she said, go back to that first book that you wrote, read some other stuff, do some changes, and that is then what became the Mudflats Murder Club.
Well, you've put the work in, certainly. So how does it feel when you think about those rejections to see that now your book reviews are being compared to the Thursday Murder Club, which is now a Netflix series? Okay, it's being compared to Only Murders in the Building, which is a Hulu series, not based on a book, though. How do you feel?
Well, it does feel very, very good. You know, all I can do is I can write the best book I can, you know, and then the publisher has been absolutely wonderful in getting the word out. You know, the sales have been good. I feel good about it. You know, the 2nd book comes out in February. The 3rd book comes out next year, July, and I'm currently writing the 4th book right now. So yeah, and my agent tells me, don't you ever complain about having to write an 8-book series, because there are 1,000 other authors that would love to be in your position.
Well, we'll be there for the TV preview if it does get picked up, because it is a fascinating book. We need to be able to keep in touch with you. We want to know what's going on. How do we best do that?
Well, I do have a website, and all of that information is right there. I don't keep it as up to date as I should, but I'm also very active on Facebook, and people can just find me there under my name, Brian Thiem. I try to post a little bit on Instagram, but I'm more of a Facebook person. And I try to keep up on any appearances I have there.
Well, you've been prolific so far, and I appreciate every moment I have spent reading this book, waiting for the new ones, and for the time you've given us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgia. As I said, my name is Brian Thiem. I've lived down here in Sun City for about 10 years. I'll tell you a little bit about myself and how I became a writer. It wasn't part of my life plans any more than it was Sean Tanner's retirement plan. Real quickly, I was born in Pennsylvania. My family moved from there when I was 14, moved to Phoenix, Arizona, went to high school and college there, graduated from Arizona State University. Oh, okay, good. Yeah. When I graduated from college, I went on a ROTC scholarship, and so I spent 4 years in the Army after that. I was military police 1 year in Korea, and then the next 3 years at Fort Ord, California, down in Monterey. It was a peacetime army. It was after Vietnam, so it was kind of boring for someone like me. And so I was planning on getting out, and I was looking at the FBI, Secret Service, and all those, cool federal agencies. One of my jobs with the military police, I was also the commander of their SRT, Special Reaction Team, the military version of SWAT. And they sent me to a hostage negotiation course up in San Francisco. I was the only military guy there. It was all local cops and FBI agents and so on. And the first night in the bar, I met this old grizzly cop from Oakland. And he said to me, "Kid, if you want to do police work, I mean really, really do police work, come to Oakland, because there's more police work that needs to be done there than anywhere else." So I also applied to Oakland and, had a college degree, Army officer. They hired me. Went through the academy, went out on the streets, and I was just having a lot of fun. I was just off probation when the FBI finally contacted me and says, "Hey, we'll give you a tentative job offer, and I said, "Nah, I don't know. I'm kind of liking what I'm doing here." So anyway, I stayed with Oakland. First couple years, I worked in the patrol division. Then I was selected to go into special operations, which was a 12 officer team that worked all the high crime areas, went after all the bad guys. Did that for about a year, and then I was selected to go over to Vice Narcotics. So I grew my hair long, and for the next year and a half, I basically bought drugs and picked up prostitutes for a living. I got promoted to sergeant out of that assignment, so I had to get a haircut and get some suits, and I was assigned to the Criminal Investigation Division. Like everybody, you start off in property crime, so I worked auto theft for 6 months, and then I went into the felony assault unit. That's all the shootings, stabbings, and beatings where the people live. I did a good enough job there that I was selected to go over to the homicide unit. That was always my dream, You look at all the movies and the TV shows, the cops aren't working in the records division or personnel. No, they're working homicide. After I retired, there was a little local library about probably a half a mile from my house. And for the first time in my career, I had time to read for fun. And so I went to the library, walking there with my dog, and came back with books over and over and over again, and I started reading these books. They asked me to join the library as on the library board, which I did. I thought, wow, maybe I could write one of these novels myself. They had these adult education classes, kind of like Ollie here, and I took one on fiction writing, one night a week for 6 weeks. And I thought, wow, this is fun. I took another one of these, and in the second one, the students there decided we were going to form our own writers group and we were all going to write novels. So we got together every 2 or 3 weeks. Everybody had to bring a chapter. And after about 1.5 years, I had a book that was finished, but it wasn't any good. Yeah. And I really didn't know how to make it better. At the same time, I got a letter from the Veterans Administration saying that because of my year in Iraq, I was eligible for the post 9/11 GI Bill. So I could take some college classes for free. And I thought, wow, I could take some college classes, learn how to write, and fix this book. Well, I checked out the different universities, and Western Connecticut State University had a wonderful writing program. Went down there, met with the veterans advisor, who immediately, because I already had a graduate degree and a bachelor's degree, took me over to the coordinator for the MFA program, Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing. They accepted me into the program, and again, I was just going to take a couple classes, but I pretty soon learned that I had a whole lot to learn. So the 2-year full-time program I did in 3 years, and my master's thesis was the book that eventually became my first published novel, Red Line. And then I was writing the 4th one, and my publisher said they really were not interested in a 4th book in the series. You know, I mean, if I wasn't a grown man, I would probably sit down and cry, because I expected, you know, hey, I was going to be the next Michael Connelly, you know. And, you know, my character was going to be like Harry Bosch. But, you know, my agent called me up, and she's been my greatest cheerleader, and she said, write something new. So I did. I wrote another book. Took me about 1.5 years. She sent it out to publishers. Nobody was interested. She said, write something new. I wrote another new book. She sent it out to New York publishers. Nobody was interested. And that was about the time of defund the police, George Floyd riots, and she said, you know, the New York publishing houses right now are not looking for any books where the cops are the good guys. So I wrote a standalone with a main character that was not a cop. Again, spent about 1.5 years writing that. Couldn't sell it either. And about that time, she said, hey, that first book that you wrote, you know, after the Matt Sinclair series, I want you to read a couple of other books, one of them being the Thursday Murder Club. And she said, and make some changes, you know, not copying it, but make some changes. And I did. She sent that out and got a publishing contract for a 4-book series with a wonderful publisher. And the first book on that is, as you see, the Mudflats Murder Club. But then I had to create a main character, you know, and I created Sean Tanner. Sean Tanner, he worked for the Oakland Police Department for 30 years, much of it working homicide. And his wife, a lovely woman, was kind of the pillar of the family. While he was out there working all the time, she raised the 2 kids, she kept the house, she kept everything together. So when Sean retired, he promised he was going to spend the rest of his life devoted to his wife and just having fun. And they moved to Spartina Island into the gated community there. And then she had cancer and she died. And there Sean is, floundering, where the only purpose in life he had was a lousy game of golf and fishing in the tidal river and throwing the fish back. That was the only purpose he had in life until there was a murder across the street. And Sean was asked to get involved. And then he joined the Mudflats Murder Club. He met Charlotte Nash, a detective sergeant with the sheriff's office. And let me tell you about Charlie. Charlie is, and does not resemble my wife, trust me, but she is a blonde. She is Southern. Her mother lives in a antebellum mansion, you know, like many of them. I walked around Beaufort and I picked out the exact house that they grew up in, by the way. And Charlie came from a wealthy family. Her mother basically would be very, very happy if The days of Charlotte O'Hara never ended. Yeah. She loved being Southern. Now, Charlie went to college, and she was working with the Coastal Commission there because she was a big believer in the ecology and saving the environment and stuff. And her father, who was a real estate developer, went missing. He just went missing. And Charlie at this time was in a bad marriage, got divorced, and she joined the sheriff's office. Eventually became a detective, and then turned over, got promoted, and then she was running one of the 2 detective squads there. And that's where she first met Sean. Sean was asked to come in and look at one of her murder scenes, and Charlie did not like that at all. Yeah, one of these Northerners coming down here to show us dumb Southern folks how to solve murders. But eventually they worked together on the first case, and I'm writing book 4 right now, and yes, in book 1 there is a little spark of romance, and well, you'll have to read the rest of the series to see what happens. When I came on the cold case team, we were taught right at the beginning that we volunteers will never solve a case. And what you don't want is a bunch of us Northerners coming down to tell these dumb Southerners how to do police work. So what the cold case team does is we will do a lot of work. We will look at a lot of different things. We will come up with ideas and suggestions for the active detectives, and then they will do the work. And if the case is then solved, then they're the ones that get credit. If you saw, I think in the last day or two, Sheriff Tanner did a press release about solving a cold case. Everybody saw that? They did mention in there that one of the volunteers on the cold case team was instrumental in doing a lot of the investigative genetic genealogy on that. So that's about as far as we'll go, and I won't say anything more, but we do our best to assist in any way that we can, but we never solve any cases. The Beaufort County Sheriff's detectives will solve the case. He has what is the most realistic cop show. Back in the day, I used to say the Hill Street Blues. You guys remember Hill Street Blues? It was, that was very, very realistic. Blue Bloods in a lot of ways is realistic. I love, Tom Selleck and the police family. The things that aren't realistic is, Danny starts every homicide investigation at 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. In Oakland, they never killed people at 8 o'clock in the morning, never, so many times, I'd be out working one of these homicides when my partner and I are the ones on call, and we would finally say, okay, we've had enough on this one, go home at 2 o'clock in the morning, lay my head down on the pillow, and a half hour later the phone rings because someone else was murdered, and off we go again. So yeah, that might be the most realistic. But so Robin asked my writing process. When I was in the MFA program, my first book, I just started writing. Some authors will call that being a pantser. You're writing by the seat of your pants. And what I learned is that, a book is somewhere under 100,000 words. That's around a 350-page book. And to complete a book that's 100,000 words, when you're a pantser, you end up writing 300,000 words. Because sometimes you will sit down and write for a month and go off on this direction and then find out I painted myself into a corner and it ain't working. So I've learned to be a plotter. Before I start a new book, I'll sit down in my office and in my recliner with a pad of paper, and I'll just jot down ideas. I already have my characters for a series, but when I started a new series, I also then start thinking about characters and everything. And I might do that, work a couple hours a day, mostly thinking, a little bit of writing. And then I take out a stack of note cards and I'll jot down a sentence or two that will be a scene. You know, like maybe chapter number 1 might be, you know, dead woman found lying in the sand dunes on Spartina Beach. You know, and once I get 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 of these note cards, I'll shuffle them around in an order that seems to make sense, and then I'll do a plot outline. And for me, the advantages of doing a plot outline is every day when I sit down, I know what I'm writing. You know, when I started writing my first book, I mean, I would sit there and stare at my computer monitor for 3 or 4 hours sometimes, really not knowing where to go. And now I know where to go. Now, as I write, things change. That plot outline is not set in stone. Sometimes characters take off in different directions. I found that Sean is pretty structured, but Charlie, Charlie sometimes takes over the whole case, you know. She is a very, very feisty one. And you know, when Charlie speaks to me that way, I let her go, you know, and then kind of go from there. But anyway, once I finish my first draft, then I'll let it sit for about a week. I'll do a heavy revision, which might take a couple months, rewriting a lot of stuff, then send it out to my beta readers, get feedback from them, rewrite it again, and then I'll do I call it a read aloud edit. You know, with a computer, you can hit that little button there that says read aloud, and it'll read it to me as I follow right along, and it'll catch a lot of errors that way. And then I send it to my editor at the publishing house, and they come up with more stuff. And then it goes to the copy editor, and that's a really, really nice woman that takes out every comma that I put in and puts it somewhere else. Yeah. Question is, do I have a favorite author? You know, I mean, I have to say Michael Connelly. I think his Harry Bosch character is just iconic. But I read a whole lot of different things now, you know. I mean, I know so many fellow authors that I end up reading their work. You know, I was down in New Orleans a couple months ago at what they call BoucherCon, which is the largest mystery writing conference in the world. 2,000 people, probably about 800 authors, all the rest avid readers. And these are avid readers that read, you know, 150, 200 books a year. And so I know a lot of different authors, and you know, so I try to read their books when they come out. You know, and I mean, now I read 1 or 2 books a week. You know, and I get ideas. I get to see what the authors are doing well, and sometimes what they're not doing so well, so I don't do the same thing in my own books. How do I select their names? Sometimes the names come to me, but I'll tell you the truth. I have, you know, these different websites marked most popular baby names. So if I'm creating a character that's 70 years old, I'll look for, in 1950s, all the most popular baby names, you know, and that'll be his first name. Sometimes my agent is there, like she named Sean Tanner. In the first version of that, he was more of a tough guy, and she said, you know, part of this is you got to make Sean a little bit softer. She goes, I hate to break it to you, but probably 80% of your readers are going to be women. You know? So you want to create a male character that all the men want to be like, but all the women want to be with.